Admiral James Reed stood at the window of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the Colorado mountains, but his attention was fixed on the tablet in front of him, displaying real-time data from Earth's deep space monitoring stations. "Sir," his assistant, Tom White, burst into the room. "We're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of our solar system. They're unlike anything we've ever seen before." Reed's jaw tightened. After 30 years in service, he had learned to trust his instincts. And right now, every fiber of his being screamed that this was it. Humanity's first contact with advanced alien life. "Show me," he ordered, moving to the central holographic display. The room darkened automatically as dozens of glowing dots appeared, each representing an unknown vessel approaching their solar system. The scale indicator made his breath catch. Each dot was larger than New York City. "How many?" Reed asked, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. 217 vessels, sir. The smallest one is about the size of Manhattan. The largest." Tom's voice trailed off as he adjusted the display. "The largest is roughly the size of Ireland." Reed pressed a button on his desk. "This is Admiral Reed. Initiate Protocol Omega." "I repeat, Protocol Omega is now in effect." His voice echoed through every military base on Earth and the Moon. Within seconds, sirens began blaring worldwide. In the next hour, Earth's military and political leaders gathered in an emergency virtual summit. The president of the United Earth Council appeared on the main screen, her face grave. "Admiral Reed, what are we looking at?" Before Reed could answer, every screen in the room flickered. The emergency broadcast system, the internet, even personal devices, all displayed the same image: a tall, humanoid figure in ornate armor. "People of Earth," the figure spoke in perfect English, its voice simultaneously broadcasting in every language on Earth. "I am Grand Admiral Vale of the Galactic Empire. For 10,000 years, we have brought order and progress to the galaxy. Your civilization has been deemed worthy of integration into our empire. Surrender now and become part of the greatest civilization in known space." The transmission shifted, showing scenes from other worlds. Beautiful cities with impossible architecture, spacecraft that dwarfed anything humans had ever built, and technology that seemed like magic. Then the images change. Worlds reduced to ash. Planets scared by weapons beyond human comprehension. Civilizations brought to their knees. "These were the worlds that refused our generous offer," Vale continued. "They chose extinction over progress. You have 24 hours to make your decision. Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. Reed looked around at the faces of Earth's leaders. Fear, anger, and determination mixed in equal measure. He thought about the classified reports sitting in his secure server, about Project Quantum Shield, about Dr. Miller's breakthrough, about the weapon they had sworn never to use. "Madam President," Reed spoke carefully, "before we make any decisions, there's something you need to know about our defensive capabilities." She nodded, and with a few commands, the room's security level increased. What Reed was about to share would either save Earth or damn them all. 3 months ago, our quantum research team made a discovery. We've kept it secret because, frankly, we were afraid of its implications. He paused, letting his words sink in. "We've found a way to manipulate the fabric of reality itself." The room erupted in whispers. Reed held up his hand for silence. "The Empire out there thinks we're primitive. They expect us to either surrender or fight with conventional weapons." A thin smile crossed his face. "I suggest we show them that humanity has a few surprises of its own." As the sun set over the Rockies, Earth's military forces mobilized worldwide. Civilians were moved to underground shelters, space stations were evacuated, and in a secret facility deep beneath the mountains, Dr. Miller powered up his quantum device for the first time. The Empire had given Earth 24 hours to surrender. They were about to learn that humans didn't take kindly to ultimatums. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a bunker that officially didn't exist, Earth's military leaders gathered around a massive steel table. The air was thick with tension, and the only sound was the quiet hum of air filtration systems. Admiral Reed watched as Dr. Robert Miller set up his presentation. The scientist's hand shook slightly as he connected his secure tablet to the room's holographic system. Miller wasn't used to presenting to rooms full of generals and admirals, but today was different. Today, he might be presenting humanity's only hope for survival. "Ladies and gentlemen," Miller began, his voice steadier than his hands, "what I'm about to show you will change everything we know about physics and warfare." He pressed a button, and a complex diagram appeared in the air above the table. 3 months ago, while researching clean energy solutions, my team discovered something extraordinary. The hologram shifted to show a subatomic structure. We found a way to delete matter from reality itself. The room remained silent, but Reed noticed several generals leaning forward in their seats. "Not destroy," Miller continued, "not transform, but completely remove from existence. When we delete something, it doesn't explode or break apart. It simply stops existing, taking with it a sphere of space-time, roughly 10 times the size of the deleted object." General Williams, a tough old soldier with more combat experience than anyone else in the room, spoke up. "Are you telling us you can make things disappear?" Miller smiled nervously. "Not just things, General. We can make space itself disappear, and anything caught in the deletion zone goes with it. Forever." The hologram changed again, showing a small testing chamber. Inside, a metal cube sat on a pedestal. Miller played the video. There was a brief flash of blue light, and suddenly both the cube and a perfect sphere of space around it simply vanished, leaving a dark void that seemed to swallow light itself. "We've weaponized this technology," Miller explained. "We've created what we call quantum torpedoes. Each one carries a deletion core that can remove several thousand cubic kilometers of spacetime from reality." Admiral Reed stood up. "We've already mounted these torpedoes on our orbital defense platforms. We have enough to create a defensive screen around Earth that would make any invasion impossible." "And you're sure this will work against their level of technology?" asked the Chinese Admiral, Lin. Miller nodded. "The beauty of quantum deletion is that it doesn't care about technology level. There's no defense against having the space you occupy stop existing. Even if their ships have shields that can stop a supernova, they can't stop us from deleting the space their shields occupy." Reed walked to the center of the room. "I propose we demonstrate this capability. Not on their fleet. We're not murderers. But we need to show them what we can do." The president's voice came through the speakers. She had been listening from a separate secure location. "What do you suggest, Admiral?" "Jupiter's moon Callisto is currently on the far side of Jupiter from the Empire's fleet. I suggest we delete it. The Empire will be able to observe the effect without any risk to their ships." The room erupted in discussion. Deleting an entire moon seemed extreme, but faced with the extinction of humanity, extreme measures were warranted. After 10 minutes of debate, the president made her decision. "Do it. Show them what happens when they threaten Earth." Reed turned to Miller. "How long until the torpedo is ready?" "It's already loaded. We just need to input the targeting coordinates and launch codes." Reed looked around the room at humanity's military leaders. They all nodded in agreement. He took a deep breath and pressed his palm against the biometric scanner. "Launch codes confirmed," the computer announced. "Quantum torpedo armed and ready for launch." "Send our warning to the Empire," Reed ordered. "Tell them to watch Callisto carefully. They're about to learn why you don't threaten Earth." High above the Earth, a small, innocent-looking missile detached from its orbital platform and began its journey toward Jupiter. In less than an hour, the Empire would learn that size doesn't always equal power, and that sometimes the most dangerous species are the ones that look harmless. On the Empire's flagship, Grand Admiral Vale watched the primitive missile with mild amusement. His tactical officers had detected its launch from Earth's orbit and now tracked its slow progress toward Jupiter's moon system. The missile's speed was barely above their cargo ship's capabilities. "Should we intercept it, sir?" asked his second-in-command. Vale waved his hand dismissively. "Let them have their demonstration. Sometimes letting a child throw their tantrum is the quickest path to submission." The massive view screen showed the missile's trajectory. Vale had commanded the Empire's forces for over 200 years, and he had seen thousands of civilizations try to resist. Some fought with particle beams, others with antimatter weapons. All eventually fell to the Empire's superior technology. "Sir," one of his science officers called out, "the missile is carrying an unusual energy signature. Our systems can't identify it." Vale's amusement faded slightly. In 10,000 years of expansion, the Empire had cataloged every known weapon type. An unknown signature was interesting. The missile reached Callisto in 47 minutes. Vale watched as it struck the moon's surface. He expected an explosion, perhaps even one large enough to crack the moon's crust. What happened next made him stand up from his command chair for the first time in days. There was no explosion, no flash, no debris. Instead, Callisto simply winked out of existence. Where the moon had been, there was now a perfect sphere of nothing. Not empty space, but an absence of space itself. The void was darker than the space around it, seeming to draw in light without reflecting anything back. "Report," Vale demanded, his voice sharp with sudden concern. His science officers scrambled to analyze the readings. "Sir, the moon, it's gone. Not destroyed, not transformed. It's as if that section of space-time no longer exists. And the effect is, it's spreading." Vale watched in horror as the quantum deletion cascade expanded outward. 3 of Jupiter's smaller moons vanished as they intersected with the growing void. Finally, after consuming a volume of space larger than Earth itself, the cascade stopped. A transmission from Earth appeared on his screen. Admiral Reed's face showed no emotion as he spoke. "We trust you observed our demonstration carefully," Reed said calmly. "What you just witnessed was a small-yield quantum torpedo. We have larger ones aimed at strategic points around your fleet. This is humanity's first and only warning. Leave our solar system, or we will be forced to demonstrate this technology on something more significant than a moon." Vale's tactical officer spoke up, panic evident in his voice. "Sir, we're detecting multiple launch platforms in Earth orbit, all carrying similar energy signatures to the weapon they just used." For the first time in his long career, Vale felt real fear. The Empire had experimented with quantum deletion technology centuries ago, but had abandoned the research. The power to delete sections of reality itself was deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable. Yet these humans, these supposedly primitive humans, had not only developed it, but had weaponized it. "Sir," his second-in-command whispered, "what are your orders?" Vale stared at the void where Callisto had been. The Empire's shields, their most advanced weapons, even their fastest ships, none of it mattered against a weapon that could simply delete the space they occupied. "Hold position," he ordered. "Send word to the Imperial capital. They need to see this." His crew worked in tense silence as the minutes ticked by. Every scanner was focused on Earth's orbital platforms, tracking the quantum torpedoes that could end not just ships, but the very space they occupied. In the Rocky Mountain bunker, Admiral Reed watched the Empire's fleet through their own sensors. "They've stopped advancing," he reported to the assembled leaders. "Now we wait to see if they're wise enough to retreat." Dr. Miller stood by the window, staring up at the sky. "We just deleted a moon to save Earth," he said quietly. "What does that make us?" Reed placed a hand on his shoulder. "It makes us survivors, Doctor. And sometimes surviving is all that matters." Above them, the Empire's fleet hung motionless in space, facing the first civilization that had ever made them pause. The next few hours would determine whether humanity had earned its freedom, or whether the void that had swallowed Callisto would need to grow larger. Grand Admiral Vale paced the length of his command chamber, something he hadn't done in over 50 years. The massive room, decorated with trophies from 1,000 conquered worlds, felt suffocating for the first time in his memory. On the main display, the void where Callisto had been continued to mock him with its absolute darkness. "Play it again," he ordered. The holographic display showed the moment of Callisto's deletion for the 100th time. Vale watched as space itself seemed to fold inward, creating a perfect sphere of nothingness that defied every law of physics the Empire understood. His war council had assembled in the chamber, 20 of the Empire's finest commanders, each with centuries of experience. None of them spoke. They had watched civilizations rise and fall, had crushed rebellions across 3 galactic arms, but this was different. "Access the Imperial Archives," Vale commanded. "Show me everything we have on quantum deletion research." The ship's AI complied, projecting centuries-old research data into the air. Vale read the familiar warning that had stopped the Empire's own experiments. Research terminated due to catastrophic risk to space-time stability. Technology deemed too dangerous for military application. "How?" asked Commander Dex, the youngest of his officers at only 90 years old. "How did they succeed where we failed?" Vale had been asking himself the same question. "Because they had nothing to lose," he answered slowly. "We stopped our research because we had an empire to protect. They developed it knowing they might face extinction." He paused, letting that sink in. Sometimes the most dangerous enemies are those with their backs against the wall. A signal chimed, indicating a transmission from the Imperial capital had arrived. The Emperor himself appeared on the main screen, his ancient face lined with concern. "The Council has reviewed your report," the Emperor said, his voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of authority. "We find it disturbing." Vale bowed his head. "What are your orders, Your Majesty?" "The Council is divided. Half believe we should withdraw, acknowledging that some worlds are too costly to conquer. The other half insists we cannot show weakness. They suggest a full assault, believing the humans must be bluffing about having more than one such weapon." Vale glanced at the void where Callisto had been. "And what do you believe, Your Majesty?" The Emperor was silent for a long moment. "I believe you are there, Admiral Vale. You have conquered more worlds than any commander in our history. What is your assessment?" Vale walked to the viewport, staring at the distant blue marble that was Earth. "They deleted a moon to prove they could. Not a ship, not a military target, but a moon. The message is clear. They can remove anything from existence, and distance means nothing to their weapon." He turned back to face the Emperor. "If we attack, and they are not bluffing, we risk losing not just ships, but entire sections of space. The damage could be irreversible. You suggest we retreat." The Emperor's voice carried no judgment, only curiosity. "I suggest we consider something we have never done before," Vale replied carefully. "I suggest we negotiate." Murmurs broke out among his war council. The Empire did not negotiate. It conquered or it left, but it never treated primitive worlds as equals. "Our scans have detected 12 more quantum torpedo platforms in Earth orbit," Vale continued. "All fully armed. If each one can do what the first did." He let the thought hang in the air. The Emperor nodded slowly. "Make contact with their leaders." But Vale, his eyes narrowed. "If this is a bluff, if they show any weakness." "Understanding, Your Majesty. But first, we need to survive long enough to find out." As the transmission ended, Vale returned to his command chair. Around him, his officers waited for orders, their centuries of experience useless against an enemy who could simply delete them from existence. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered. Tell them the Empire wishes to open diplomatic channels." As the message was transmitted, Vale watched Earth on his display. For the first time in his long life, he wondered if the Empire had finally found a species it couldn't simply overpower. The thought was both terrifying and somehow exciting. Admiral Reed read the Empire's message requesting diplomatic talks 3 times before looking up at his command staff. Something felt wrong. The Empire's fleet hadn't moved back. They had simply stopped advancing. "Dr. Miller," Reed called out, "what do your sensors show?" Miller studied his screens, his face illuminated by the soft blue glow of quantum detection arrays. "Their ships are powering up something. Energy readings are climbing slowly. They're trying to hide it, but they can't mask quantum fluctuations from our detectors." Reed's jaw tightened. "They're stalling, probably charging their main weapons while pretending to want peace." He turned to his communications officer. "Send this message to their command ship. Actions speak louder than words. Your fleet's energy buildup has been detected. You have 5 minutes to power down or receive another demonstration." On the Empire's flagship, Vale received the message with a mixture of anger and respect. These humans were more observant than he had expected. Still, he had his orders from the Emperor. Test their resolve while preparing for a potential full assault. "Continue charging the mass drivers," he ordered. "Let's see if they're truly willing to." "Sir," his tactical officer shouted, "they're launching another quantum torpedo." Vale leaped to his feet. "Target it. All ships, open fire." The Empire's fleet lit up the void with energy weapons, but the torpedo was too small, too fast. It shot past their formation, heading for empty space between Jupiter and Saturn. "What are they doing?" Vale wondered aloud. "There's nothing there to hit." The torpedo detonated in empty space. The effect was immediate and horrifying. A sphere of nothingness expanded outward, larger than the one that had consumed Callisto. When it stabilized, it had created a permanent void in space, nearly the size of Earth's moon. Reed's voice came through on all Imperial channels. "That void now blocks your fleet's fastest route of advance toward Earth. The next demonstration will not be aimed at empty space. Power down your weapons. All of them." In the Rocky Mountain bunker, Miller watched the quantum readings from the Empire's ships. "They're powering down, sir. All of them." Reed nodded grimly. "Now we find out if they're ready to talk seriously." He turned to the president's screen. "Man, with your permission, I'd like to show them one more thing before negotiations begin." The president raised an eyebrow. "What did you have in mind?" "Dr. Miller has been updating our orbital defense grid. I think the Empire should see exactly what they're dealing with." At Reed's signal, every quantum torpedo platform around Earth activated simultaneously. The energy readings were clear enough that even the Empire's primitive quantum sensors could detect them. On Vale's bridge, alarms blared as the sensors detected the power surge from Earth's orbital grid. His tactical officer's face went pale. "Sir, we're detecting 47 quantum torpedo platforms. Each one is carrying a weapon 5 times more powerful than the ones they've demonstrated." Vale stared at the tactical display showing Earth's orbital grid. The humans had turned their entire planet into a fortress armed with the most devastating weapons in known space. If those platforms fired, they could delete nearly a quarter of the solar system. "Send to Earth Command," Vale said quietly. Message reads, "We are powering down all weapons. Our fleet will withdraw to minimum safe distance. We request face-to-face diplomatic contact under terms of absolute truce." Reed read the message and allowed himself a small smile. "Tell them we accept. But remind them, the quantum grid remains active until treaties are signed." The Empire's mighty ships began moving backward, their weapons powered down, their shields minimal. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Empire was retreating not because they chose to, but because they had to. In the void of space, the quantum deletion sphere hung like a black star, a permanent reminder that humanity would not be conquered quietly. The neutral meeting point was a hastily constructed space station positioned halfway between Earth's orbit and the Empire's fleet. Admiral Reed stood at the viewport, watching as the Imperial shuttle approached. Behind him, Dr. Miller nervously adjusted his collar. "Stop fidgeting, Robert," Reed said quietly. "Remember, we're negotiating from a position of strength. The Imperial shuttle docked with a soft thud. Reed straightened his uniform and nodded to his security team. The airlock cycled, and Grand Admiral Vale stepped through, his ornate armor somehow less impressive in person than it had been in the holographic transmissions. "Welcome to neutral space," Reed said formally. "I trust your journey was comfortable." Vale's expression remained neutral, but his eyes darted around the room, taking in every detail. "Your station design is efficient," he said carefully, "though I noticed the quantum torpedo mounted above us." Reed smiled slightly. "Just a precaution. Shall we begin?" They sat at a simple metal table, Earth's delegation on one side, the Empire's on the other. The contrast was stark. Humans in their practical uniforms facing beings in elaborate armor that spoke of 10,000 years of conquest. "Let's address the obvious," Vale began. "You've developed a weapon that our own scientists abandoned as too dangerous to use." "How?" Miller spoke up, his scientific curiosity overcoming his nervousness. "We didn't start by trying to make a weapon. We were researching clean energy production. The quantum deletion effect was an accident." Vale's eyes narrowed. "An accident that you turned into the most devastating weapon in known space. Only after you threatened our world." Reed countered. "We've had the technology for months. We didn't weaponize it until we detected your fleet." The Imperial Admiral leaned back, considering this. "You know, in 10,000 years, we've never met a species that could stand against us. Yet here you are, barely able to reach your own moon, and you've forced the Empire to negotiate." "Technology isn't everything," Reed said. "Humanity has something your Empire seems to have forgotten. Creativity born of desperation. We don't want your territory. We don't want your resources. We just want to be left alone." Vale gestured to one of his officers, who placed a data crystal on the table. "These are the standard terms for Imperial Protectorate status. You would maintain autonomy while benefiting from our technology and—" "No," Reed interrupted. "Let me be clear. We're not interested in becoming part of your empire in any way. We've seen what you do to worlds that submit. They become dependent, losing their drive to innovate, to create, to survive." Miller pulled up a holographic display showing the quantum deletion effect. "We discovered this by accident because we were trying to solve our own problems. If we'd had your technology, we'd never have looked in this direction." Vale studied the humans across the table. In all his centuries of service, he'd never encountered a species so firmly committed to independence. "What terms do you propose?" Reed slid forward a simple document. "Earth and the entire solar system are recognized as sovereign and independent territory. The Empire agrees to never enter our space without explicit permission. In return, we contain our quantum deletion research to defensive applications only." "You're asking the Empire to show weakness," Vale said, but his tone lacked conviction. "No," Reed replied. "We're offering you the chance to show wisdom. The Empire hasn't survived 10,000 years by being stupid. You know what would happen if you forced us to defend ourselves. The loss of ships would be the least of your concerns." Vale picked up the document, reading it carefully. Slowly, a smile spread across his ancient face. "You know, in all our history, we've never had to write a treaty that wasn't a surrender document. This is refreshing." Reed allowed himself to relax slightly. "Then let's make history together. Not as conqueror and conquered, but as equals who respect each other's strength." As the two leaders began working out the details, Miller looked out the viewport at the distant Earth. Somewhere down there, his team was already working on turning quantum deletion technology back toward its original purpose: clean energy production. He wondered what other discoveries humanity might make, now that they had earned the right to develop at their own pace. 1 month after the treaty signing, Admiral Reed stood in his old spot by the window of the Rocky Mountain Command Center. The morning sun painted the mountains gold, just as it had on the day the Empire's fleet first appeared. But today, the view was different. The last Imperial ship had just passed Neptune's orbit, heading out of the solar system. Final report from the quantum detection grid. Miller said, walking into the office with a tablet. They're really leaving. All 217 ships, maintaining their promised withdrawal speed. Reed nodded, watching the tactical display that showed the Empire's fleet as tiny dots moving away from Earth. Have they removed their surveillance satellites? All of them, Miller confirmed. Though they did leave us a gift. He held up a small data crystal. Their star charts, complete maps of every known habitable world in the galaxy. With a note attached, I assume. Miller smiled. Yes, it says, for when you're ready to explore rather than hide. Reed turned from the window. They still don't understand. We never wanted to hide. We just wanted the freedom to develop at our own pace. He picked up the crystal, studying it. How are the energy experiments going? Better than we hoped, Miller said, his eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. Now that we're not focusing on weapons, we've made incredible progress. The quantum deletion effect, when properly controlled, can create practically unlimited clean energy. Within 5 years, we could eliminate fossil fuels entirely. And the void where Callisto was. Miller's expression sobered. It's stable. Our calculations show it will remain that way for at least 10,000 years. I suppose we've left our mark on the solar system permanently. Reed's computer chimed with an incoming transmission. The president's face appeared on his screen, along with the leaders of Earth's major nations. Admiral, the president began, the Security Council has finished reviewing your proposal. We've reached a unanimous decision. Reed straightened. He had submitted his recommendation 2 weeks ago, arguing that Earth needed to maintain its defensive capabilities while refocusing on peaceful development. Your United Earth Defense Force will be restructured, she continued. Half of its resources will go to the new Earth Science Division, focusing on peaceful applications of quantum technology. The other half will maintain our defensive grid. But, and this is important, we're not building any more quantum torpedoes. Mom, Reed questioned. We have enough to defend ourselves, she explained. Any more would be overkill. Humanity won its freedom not because we could destroy everything, but because we showed restraint in how we used that power. The Empire's ambassador sent us one final message before departing, another council member added. They've officially designated our entire solar system as a sovereign protected zone. Any Empire ship entering our space without permission will be considered an act of war against the Empire itself. Reed smiled. They're protecting us from themselves. No, the president corrected. They're protecting themselves from us. You should read their final report to their emperor. They called us, and I quote, the most dangerous species we've ever encountered, not because of their weapons, but because they developed world-ending technology by accident while trying to solve their energy crisis. Miller laughed. Wait until they find out what else we've discovered by accident. The meeting concluded, and Reed returned to his window. The morning sun had risen fully now, its light reflecting off the new quantum energy collector being assembled in orbit. Soon, it would power half of North America without producing any waste or radiation. Send a message to all UEDF personnel. Reed ordered. Message begins. Today marks a new chapter in human history. We have proved that humanity deserves its place among the stars. Not through conquest, but through innovation. Not through surrender, but through standing firm. The Empire came expecting to find primitives. They left having learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate a species that can accidentally change the laws of physics while trying to save their planet. As his message went out, Reed watched a test firing of the new quantum energy collector. The beam of pure energy shot toward Earth, carrying enough power to light up a city. He thought about the Empire's gift. The star charts showing thousands of habitable worlds. Someday, humanity would visit those worlds. But they would go as explorers, not conquerors. And if they met the Empire again out there among the stars, well, they would meet as equals. After all, humanity had given the Empire something it hadn't had in 10,000 years. A reason to think twice.